I assured Helen I only had an hour or so of speech to present. I don't know who she was talking about, Mylene. I love the idea of both and. So much that I've been thinking my gravestone should say, dead, not dead. So in that tradition of both and, I stand here delighted and really embarrassed. Embarrassed about the attention, which does not belong all to me. It's all of you and the hundreds and hundreds of other people who made all those things that Mylene talked about possible. But I'm delighted that people in this community have gone to great effort with a genuine gesture to affirm my place in this community. It is tender to be so recognized, and I am really, really appreciative. I'm also very aware that this is a responsibility. As one who is by nature, and likely to ever remain so, way overly responsible, I do feel a sense of burden with this honor too. I remember the words of Alison Huntley, likewise honored as a companion a few years ago, in her acceptance speech. She deftly took the concept of companion and tossed it up in the air and looked at all the kinds of accountabilities of relationship that were inherent in companionship. Her wisdom pressed upon me at the time with the recognition that CCS was establishing a category somewhat akin to an elder. And there were people now that the school should, in fact, in a sense, was obliged to listen to for wisdom. It's not unlike the relationship I feel in my mind that I have with the United Church of Canada. As a member of the Order of Ministry, I am accountable to the church, but the church is accountable to me too. They cannot summarily dismiss me, much as some of them might like to have upon occasion. And so the school and I have a new kind of relationship. In the very long contemplation of what I might say tonight, since I've known about this award for quite a while, and I was away in March, that's why I wasn't able to be part of the celebration with Charlotte and Barbara. But since I've been thinking about this, three faces have floated into my imagination. And try as I might to reboot that imagination, they simply will not disappear. And so I want to name those three faces. They are Wendy Hunt, Daphne Rogers, and Elizabeth Brain. Wendy Hunt was my teacher when I was a student, a colleague as we co-led some events, continuing education events in the late 80s, and she was a friend. I knew she would not be here tonight, for the relationship between CCS and Wendy was fractured at the time of the move from Toronto. And painfully for me, it also ruptured our bond. Why did her face appear? An icon of the complexity of community, of belonging and longing, a window on the raw edges of passion and commitment and dedication and love that can be frayed by disappointment, fatigue, and grief. A sign of community at its best, because yes, at its best, the relationships that form community are never easy. Yes to all of those. But her face is there because she gave me so much that sustained me on my journey. Wendy modeled for me to be myself, even if that self didn't fit the popular mode. Wendy was, and I'll bet still is, blunt, almost confrontational at times. She startled me often by speaking the truth to me, and I didn't like it. Well, but eventually I did. It was that both and. She companions me often, and I strive to be true to the lessons she gave me. Another of my trio of faces won't be here either tonight, at least not in body. Daphne died October 24th, 2009, the day before my graduation ceremony at St. Stephen's. And that's significant because Daphne hosted me for many, many weeks over several years when I was in Edmonton doing my studies and when I was there on CCS work. She opened the door to her spacious apartment for just a short walk from the St. Stephen's campus to many of us who were studying at St. Stephen's. She also opened her heart to be welcoming and curious and caring. "Well, how was school today?" she would say, with genuine interest. Daphne was not the only member of this community to model hospitality for me. Literally hundreds of people have provided a resting place for me on my travels. And I was primed to be observant of these acts of gracious companionship by the mentoring provided to me by my good friend and former colleague, Ted Dodd, who is perhaps, alongside with Kay Pearson, the most hospitable person I've ever known. But the iconography for Daphne goes way beyond hospitality. Daphne was a grad of the United Church Training School from 1959, a deaconess, diaconal minister, who served her whole career in Japan. She's just one of the cloud of witnesses who hovers over my shoulder. And I can tell you, it's really annoying to have a cloud of witnesses watching your every move. As some of you may know, I've been researching, and as Maylan mentioned, the lives of United Church deaconesses in several ways over the last few years. I don't know as much about the Anglican side of the school. I've focused my energy in these last years on the United Church side. But on the United Church side alone, there are over 1,900 graduates of the school. And of that, 650 were deaconesses. I know there were men who graduated later, but my focus is on the women and on the deaconesses that were prior to 1980. So I'll just speak for a moment about them. Sure, these women were ordinary. They were dispensers of charity. They were dutiful, often even subservient, and so on. But they were extraordinary. Even if they were not spectacular, they were extraordinary. When serving in public ministry as a woman becomes ordinary, it's extraordinary. The time in Christian history when women have been allowed to be in public leadership and in ministry in the church is so tiny. It is an extraordinary thing. And these women made a path for me and for so many more of us. And they walk alongside. Daphne walks alongside me, and I know other women walk with you. So, hey, Daphne, I know you are near. The last in my trinity is here, Elizabeth Brain, who I first met in denominational studies, a required course in the CCS curriculum at the time we were students. But it was more than a decade later that I had a chance to truly get to know her, during the time of the move that Maylan described. Elizabeth assumed the role of the CCS co-chair. I knew it then, but I know it more and more as time passes, how amazing the gift of leadership she brought was. She was there, 1,000 miles away from Winnipeg and Calgary, but I and my colleagues, we knew she was there. She could be counted on to be engaged, supportive, intelligent, challenging, prepared, pastoral. And if you dropped by for a visit or to stay for a few weeks, which I did upon occasion, to provide a really good glass of red wine. In team with her and with Kirsten Earl McCorrister, who is also here this evening, I did some of my best work. Over the last few years, as the pace of my life has changed and I've had time to volunteer, and as I find myself in contract work where I'm doing leadership, I know I'm drawing extensively on the model that Elizabeth provided. And while her skills are indeed exceptional, she's not alone. For many others have brought gifts in their hands, reached out, taken hold of mine, and passed that gift along. So as Laurie Stewart could probably tell, I've now done the CE, the RO on my spiral. And now it's time to get to the AC. And if you don't know what that means, you haven't been hanging around the center long enough. 3 women, 3 very different approaches, teaching me about companionship. Companionship can be gutsy, courageous, and dramatic. I think of Nellie McClung's advice: never explain, never retract, never apologize, just get the thing done and let them howl. Not surprisingly, Wendy had that on her bulletin board at 77 Charles. I have it poster size on my wall. Companionship can be quiet, assuring, uncluttered. Daphne had a small woodcut of an Asian stylized Jesus with Japanese characters down one side, proclaiming from John's Gospel, "I am the resurrection and the life." And the rest of that verse, "The one who believes in me will live, even though they die." Companionship can be wise, deep, and steady. Undertaking the task of leading the community in prayer during the endowment campaign, these words from Elizabeth, drawing on the poetry of Carolyn McDade, sustained us. Spirit of life, bless us and enliven us. Be present with us and sustain us through this time. Enable our future to be part of your future. May we be ever responsive to your hand molding us and giving life the shape of justice. Amen. So that leaves the action part of the spiral. Mostly the action is now for me to shut up. You want me to go away so you can move on with the agenda, right? I've spoken long enough. But the action is to let the gift of this award, and again I thank you for it, and the reflection it has provoked in me to take root, to let it change me, and in that way change the world, because in the tradition of both and, the personal is political. Thank you.